Welcome back, everyone. This is Into the Nexus, the podcast all about Heroes of the Storm. We're going to dash around a few other topics today because it is a weird week to be a Blizzard fan, which I feel like I say a lot.
Yeah, these weeks, these years, the compounding weirdness continues across all aspects of life. I was wondering the other day, like, man, are we out of like the age of tilting multiplayer games? Like, has that ship sailed? Do people really need to relax with video games in this current era? But currently, the biggest video game in the world is Elden Ring, so that's wrong.
Hey, man, if you want to fart off right off the bat, I think that game is a weird mix of being a vibe game, but also being a massive test of skill. The open worldness, man, dude, I spent like 2 hours last Sunday just exploring. I was profoundly relaxed. Of course, then I went and fought Margit.
Sure, I don't know anything about it yet, but I've heard tale that whoever that may be breaks desks and controllers alike.
The F word was said many times. My chihuahuas were quite alarmed.
That's the point. Like, I am not a cursey person. I have a PG-13 rating, and that is very light. I would say it's T for teen on my Twitch page. But Dark Souls is meant to be cursed at. It is a computer. It does not deserve your emotions, your concern, your feelings. Other players do. We should be kind to each other. But computer-controlled shenanigans, tomfoolery, and cheese ain't right. And it should have the full repertoire of your vocabulary unleashed upon it.
Well, Kyle, I can't wait for you to get this game so that you too can know the pain of having a wholly damaged dagger thrown at you every single time your finger even hovers over the potion button.
If, we can get all elitist here, of course, and say, well, it's open world, therefore there aren't hard roadblocks. You could go farm and make anything easier. There's an easy mode, and it's called farming, after all. Elden Ring.
Oh, yeah.
The casual Dark Souls.
Yes. Listen, I don't care. I do not care. I've heard a lot of cussing in Heroes of the Storm this week too, man. Our personal bad luck of queuing together has followed me to my solo games.
Oh no!
I've had. So I had to really try to not just leave a game last night. I had 4 games in a row where no one soaked, and I wasn't playing heroes that could. And so I had 4 games in a row of being down 3 levels. And by the end of the night, my AC was broken too, so I don't know why I did this to myself. But I was really tilted.
Yeah, maybe just the fan should have stopped you in the first place. Like the fact that the computers generate heat, which is just creepy. It's really
yeah. Like I really noticed it last night because as I was getting angrier and angrier, the room was getting hotter and hotter.
Yeah, and it ain't right. Like I know this is a little off the beaten path here, but your brain makes heat. When you're sick, you heat up. Computers working too hard, they heat up. Trees are just big circulatory systems. I know that's not entirely true, but the world's full of creepy things that are way too like biologically. I just try not to think about it. So yes, read a book. It's cool. Have you read the new Gideon and the Ninth? Or you were super into those,
The new one's not out yet.
Well,
I'm all caught up. I've not been doing a lot of reading ever since I went back to school. So I'm still working on my master's here. So I haven't been reading much, but I've read both those books, and they're long. They are long, and dear God, the vocabulary.
I only had one tilting game this week, and that was a Leoric insisted. Now this isn't his fault, but he insisted that he was going to double soak the Warhead Junction, which is fine. But I was Nazebo. He said get with the 4-man because we also had drafted an Orphea, so they needed my sustained damage.
Top bottom with tunnel?
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, all right.
Which I wanted to do naturally as Nazebo for the sweet stacks.
Yeah.
So I get in the 4-man where I'm supplying the sustained spider damage with Orphea, and it's not going well. And Orphea just keeps riding me on my stack number. Oh, this Nazebo, so few stacks. And I'm like, what? I completed my spider quest. I'm hitting spiders, but I can't go soak. That's Leoric's job. I'm here in the 4-man. So other than that, I had like stomp games that felt great because they were in favor of me. And I was like, this is a really fun dynamic game as I Diablo charge people into walls and I'm like flattering myself and like, wow, what a fabulous the things I did to pull this off were like 2 levels up. So
Yeah. See, I have been feeling, for no other reason than getting in my own head, I've been feeling guilty about just playing Illidan over and over and over again.
You should.
Well, here's the thing, though, Kyle. Illidan can go soak. Illidan has good wave clear. Illidan can go do camps. And so last night when I started playing last night, I didn't quite the session of quick matches. Did quite the number on my win rate. I was like, I need to get off Illidan. I need to try. I need to go try other heroes, and had the issue that I just described. No one was freaking soaking, and I was on these heroes that couldn't soak. And so my final game of the night, I just said, screw it, getting back on the blindfold, man. And it was my only win. It's my only win, Kyle. So sometimes you should just play what you want to play, even though everyone else hates you for it.
Yeah, it's a detailed game reading those quick match environments too, as to like what soak you can actually give up and what if no one's bottom, you don't have to be bottom, even though it get you ahead, but your team would die while you're gone. There's a lot of people coming to Here's the Storm for that escapism right now too. And it's just everyone needs to be more kind to each other. We're all
all
feeling it.
It's a fun damn game, and I feel like 4 weeks ago, it entirely my experience, but I felt like you were kind of having the same thing where everyone was nice, everyone was doing all right. I don't know if this is true. I have no way to prove it. I'm going to blame the news of Microsoft acquiring Blizzard. I feel like we had a window after that where all of us were like, hey, things are looking up, y'all. Things are looking up. We're going to have new leadership at some point. It's going to be a little while, but it's coming. But I don't know. I feel like I feel like a bunch of grumpy World of Warcraft players have decided to try and go find their smiles and heroes.
Well, much like watering, if it was heroes watering a house plant, like, petting the dog, like, I'm not sure of the exact level of being we are in the Blizzard household, but there is definitely a
well,
health status.
By how often we get updates, I think we're a succulent.
But we take care of ourselves. We're more of like we're like a pan side cactus that doesn't need much, but would love a little arrangement, maybe a little terrarium made out of us, maybe put some.
Yep. But when you think about it, when you stop and think about what houseplant do you like the most, the one that you don't need to worry about so damn much.
There's a lot going on in Blizzard, and I think that.
I just wanted to point out that I think that might have been a top 3 analogy.
Oh,
metaphor.
Well,
yeah.
We'll do a tier list someday.
That would be hard to source.
But I do think there's a lot going on in Blizzard right now. There's a lot of announcements that we are going to talk about. And in that way, it all works back to Heroes. Because if every other game is healthy, then there is time to water the succulent. There's time to arrange the cabinets.
That there is. Well, right before the show, we had some breaking news, Kyle, which we're going to want to talk about. Before we do that, you want to dish out some thank yous?
Absolutely.
Dude, thank you so much to our patrons. If you're out there, if you're supporting us, patreon.com/ITN, we really appreciate it. And this past week, we want to thank Justin St. Pierre, because Justin is our latest producer. So
welcome, Justin.
Thank you very much, Justin. We'll be thanking you again with our revised list of producers at the end of the show. So thank you for the support. And if you're out there listening, you're like, man, get so stoked for Into Nexus every Thursday. Kyle, Garrett, playing in a league, losing in a quick match, the spectrum of Heroes of the Storm. in my ears week in and week out. I just love their stuff. Wonder how I could support them. If that has ever entered your head, Patreon. It doesn't need to be extravagant. It can be if you want. I'm not going to stop you from making it extravagant. But from $1 all the way up to our producers, we really appreciate it, everybody. And check it out, patreon.com/ITN. Come join our Discord community. It is patron only. Come join us for our monthly game nights, the patron bonanzas that we'd like to throw. It's a fun time over there. It's a good community. Really appreciate the support. Thanks again, everyone. And now, Kyle, we need to talk about the fact that 30K basically lost their whole team.
After winning the whole last season.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah. So I'm going to bring for the video audience, I'm grab this little image that was tweeted from the official 30K account just a little bit ago, and I'll read it for the audio audience. It says, "We are today announcing the release of Hasawabs, Dino, Yasu, Bad Benny, and Nagrim from our CCL roster. We want to thank them for their superb performance in the previous seasons of CCL, culminating in the roster's record-breaking Season 3, where they finished as champions, whilst we are sad to see them go. With the format change to Season 4 of CCL, as well as players' decisions to form new rosters for Season 4, this has resulted in this roster release. We'll be formally announcing our new CCL roster on April 30th. Signed Michael Udall and Rob, CEO and COOs of 30K. And everyone calls him Udall. Udall put up a video as well, more or less saying the same. But I think it's worth a watch because you really see. It seems like it was a surprise to him. I think as much as it's a surprise to you and me. You saw this news right before we went live. We were live on the stream, but we hadn't started recording the show yet, and so both of us were just like, "Holy, what? Wait, what?" It seems odd, right? Like. You won it all. And so my brain goes two different directions, Kyle. Are they trying to sell a winning team by sticking together? Or do we have a case of, boy, that band's album was awesome, but they couldn't stand working together, and now the band's going to break up?
I don't know. I interviewed so many of these players, and they were all professionals. So I don't know their inner minds as to what was going on. But, Bad Benny, I believe it's kind of hard to check some of the team switcheroos that happen mid-season, relying just on Liquipedia here. I'm pretty sure Bad Benny joined pretty late into the season and sort of was added in. Let's see, join date was in October. So
I was about to say, if you look at his specific page, it should tell you.
Yeah, so they even were switching around the team late into the season. The original fear when CCL first fired up with the draft is that players were going to end up on teams they didn't want to be on, and that players would sabotage or simply, not give it their all if they ended up on a team without their friends or people they liked. We did hear some players were basically like, if you draft me and you're not these two teams with my friends, I will not play. I will sabotage. I will throw. Do not, whatever you do, draft me if you're not these two teams. And it did work. It's a bold move. It's not the most respectable option, but you know, you gotta hustle.
Yeah,
Sometimes
it's a tough one for me. That's a tough thing to swallow. I like it's not how I would conduct myself. But if you're in a draft environment, like what other recourse do you have, kind of a thing, really. And from the outside looking in, it sure seems like that probably had a ripple effect. It's like, why else make this change?
And when we talked about this initially on the CCL Season 4 new plans, we were very positive about the idea because we just assumed that teams would stick together. Like that'd be the goal. Is now we have these established teams that have worked hard together, been together for some of them a year and a half by the time we get to that season 4, and that they've just all together really enjoyed playing with one another. And I don't think that's the case here. I think this new environment they've created where teams are going to be able to choose their rosters is going to mean that there are simply more opportunities for the players to take charge and possibly for the teams to incentivize getting certain players. Like, hey, you come over here, we're gonna hook you up with X% or whatever it may be of the winnings, or provide you with something you might be looking for, computer parts from a sponsorship. Who knows? Interesting. Liam is actually the player left behind. So Liam is now in a Vespertine, if you're familiar with that name instead, is now in a position to make their own team, as it were, gravitate people towards them if they choose.
Yeah, it's an interesting thing. I'm with you. I think overall, like having it open like this is better for the players, right? Because it makes it a bit of a buyer's market, or it has the potential to lead to better offers. But I guess my only concern is I don't know. I think I'd be disappointed if this roster essentially goes whole hog to a different team and has the same performance as season 3.
Why?
Well, this is just like the same team, different name.
Mm.
As a spectator, I'm not like if the players make more, freaking good for them. Get paid. Options and Heroes of the Storm are limited, so you do what you got to do. But just as a spectator, I think the storyline would be like, oh, I can't wait to make a meme that says I'd like to congratulate 30K on their victory.
That's fair. That as a spectator absolutely could be the case, and we don't know the inner workings of 30K. You know, we certainly heard great things about Udall and his understanding of pro players and how he orchestrated his team. But frankly, like sometimes it comes down to management. I'm not talking like in a bad, like, evil managers. I'm just talking about the raw hours it takes to put together scrims. And there may have not been that infrastructure available at 30K, regardless of kindness or anything of that note. It is really, really hard work to herd these cats. As someone who is currently a team captain, there is an absurd amount of cat herding. Cat herding?
Dude, I slept like 2 hours last night. That sounded right to me.
Yeah, it's insane. And of course, we're in the NGS department, we're being very respectful of just human schedules. We're all casuals here. When you go up a level, there might be more sacrifices made and more expectation, but still.
Yeah. No, it's fascinating. I don't know. We'll see what the outcome is, and it isn't me by any means like calling my shot that I'll be like disappointed or whatever. But I'm just kind of curious. I'm trying to I'm gonna make it. I'm trying to skirt a baseball reference, but you want to hear probably the only baseball reference I'll ever make, Kyle?
Okay.
So back in the early 2010s, actually quite a while. So like from the mid 2000s to the mid 2010s, the Tampa Bay Rays, my local team, had the same coach, a guy by the name of Joe Madden. And towards the end of his time at the Rays, they became baller. They were a great team. They were looking like they had a chance at the World Series, which would have been a big deal. Then 2015, he left for the Cubs, and then the Cubs won the World Series. So not to say it's 1-1. The coaches all it had to do with it, but it was to me it was like, you were shaping up the Rays so great, and then you left and go get a World Series with a different team. Now, of course, Katie was stoked. She's from Chicago, but anyway, I digress.
Yeah, no, from the outside, I know something about Jacksonville. Jacksonville's always cursed. They're always losing all their best players. Well, and that's what happened. Like that's literally.
I thought you were just talking about the city, because Jacksonville is a cursed city. You should just don't go there.
It's strange. Great zoo though. Great zoo, Jacksonville.
The stadium's very nice. Jaguars, hell of a facility.
But there are those sort of tier systems that develop. It's same with indie companies, corporate America. You end up at certain companies to get the prestige to go to another one, to go to another one, to go to another one, and same thing happens with teams here. I mean, they are the champs of the previous season, so they can shop around. And Chad makes a good point that Liam is also the US based player, and a lot of these were EU players who had it out. In fact, I think all of them were EU based players. Yeah. So,
that does seem like a concern too. I wonder. No, okay. Now that you pointed that out, because I didn't think about that, I wonder if it was just was it just scheduling hell? And which way did they have to lean NA hours because it's a NA based team?
But you have to play on the NA server. Not that you couldn't be EU players who then play on the EU server with an EU run organization versus EU teams. That could happen. But all of these have to be done through the NA server to prepare them for the CCL matches, which are hosted on Central.
Yeah, but what I'm leaning
Right.
towards scheduling, just because it's like, well, if they have to play on NA anyway, who cares?
Yeah.
So it's not a server concern, but I would imagine. I mean, before the show, we were talking about scheduling patron bonanzas, and we could ask this every once in a while of like, hey, could you do one at EU time? And it's like, well, we don't live in EU, so it's kind of hard for us. And also, we've done it before, and attendance is really, really low. It's hard to fill out games.
And there's also a problem right now with Masters. I mean, Masters, no matter what your game, regardless of population, always have trouble getting good games, air quotes, in some regards, but just games in general, long queues. And so there is a lot of Grandmaster players who, in order to facilitate their stream time, as a entrepreneur, have to play EU Master games and then switch over to NA Master games when the time is right for NA players to be online. So the Masters kind of get around in that way. We don't have any openings currently that I'm aware of on other teams. So obviously there's some talks bouncing around that these players are going to have opportunities in other areas, and we're likely to see a full roster apocalypse across the entire CCL.
Well, that's what this kind of hints at, right? Like if this talent is going somewhere else and we don't know where they're going, well, who are they replacing? And so this to me seems like the tip of a roster apocalypse iceberg. Is that where you're heading?
Yeah, absolutely. I'm remembering another player announced they weren't playing in the CCL today, so I'm kind of wandering around a little bit on the Twitter here to see if I can find who that was that I saw floating around. Maybe Twitch chat can help me there. But there are some players, of course, who are just noting that either school's firing up for them, it's getting too busy, they don't have time this next season. So there might be some openings, but certainly you are the top winning team. You get to choose your team, as it were. And
Choose
I'd
your own
assume,
adventure.
yeah, a lot of these are going to be going together somewhere.
A lot of questions. Something tells me this won't be the only time we're talking roster before season 4.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Chat room, Dark Artemis asking, have they said why they are leaving? I know that Hasu talked about if he wouldn't, because of the Masters Clash schedule conflicting more than previous seasons. Again, this is breaking news before the time of recording the show, so we haven't seen official statements from each individual player. But the official statement from 30K, Udall and Rob, basically it sounds like it was all of these players' decisions to leave, but not saying why. I would imagine.
Oh man.
Yeah.
All right. So Heroes Hearts CCL, they tweet a lot of memes. So you're gonna have to give me a moment here.
Oh, if you're not following the CCL account, it's worth it.
But they did straight up say, okay, here it is. Unfortunately, we are unable, this is from February 22nd. Unfortunately, we are unable to come to an agreement with Masters Clash EU and will proceed with our planned schedule. We wish them the best in their 2022 event. We understand any worries the community might share, but hope to bring you an exciting Heroes CCL Season 4. So it looks like Masters Clash EU, which Hasu is a part of, is about to have their registration, which starting on the 12th, so in 2 days, cash prizes of 12,000 euros at the LAN final in July, a start date of April 16th. So this actually lines up pretty darn close. So you know what? All the EU players, if Masters Clash is putting together a decent prize pool, they might be like, why?
You might be onto something here, yeah.
Why would I put up with the server change up when I can play locally and still make some beer bucks, as it were? And it's a shame they couldn't agree, but it seems like both are, just they're both having their seasons at the same time.
Yeah. So the open division might really come into play if what you're hinting at comes to pass. If we lose a lot of EU players to Master Clash instead of Heroes Hearth or CCL.
Yeah, and the open, without the draft, of course, continues with a closed free agent pool as in previous seasons. So it does look like you sort of register in order to take part. And then there are exhibition tournaments that take place in order to highlight your abilities, kind of, show off to proposals. And oftentimes, if you're interested in this, like it's just hitting the pavement and shaking hands, as it were. Like you should be exchanging messages with org owners, talking about how big, how much you want this gig and all that kind of thing. The actual tournament itself is not a good display. It's that old like, well, I'm gonna show off how good I am. It's like, well, you got to put in the social aspect as well, and that's where we hear the majority of players picked up because they were in the back as well, talking with the team orgs about how much they wanted in.
Yeah. Well, you gotta you gotta beat the pavement.
As it was my sister's generation. She's 3 years younger than me, but the high schoolers always said team no sleep, and they all end up in pyramid schemes. But I often think of them.
That escalated quickly. I was like, "Oh, team no sleep. I like that a lot." And then you mentioned pyramid scheme.
Yeah, well, it was that's we got to pound the pavement. I almost once worked for one of those like AT&T door to door things post college. Like, dodged a bullet there.
No shade, but I'm seeing a lot of ex classmates doing real estate now. That seems to be. Well, I think we're hitting that age where we are now of the age of real estate agents, Kyle.
Yep, TikTok's a lot of memes about flipping houses. It's my goodness, what a time! What a time!
Well, if this comes to pass, if we end up with this kind of NA EU divide between CCL and Masters, how would you like to see it rectified in the future? Would you just like to see it where the schedule does not overlap, or would you like to see them work together and have like essentially make CCL NA, make Masters EU, and then have a coming together cross tournament at the end, depending on the performance of teams?
I mean, we're still seasonal creatures ultimately. I don't think anybody wants to play a tournament over Christmas proper, and the CCL did do that, in previous seasons. So maybe that ain't such a big deal. But I think it's very natural for us all to hit about February and not want to do anything of value. And I think most tournaments just do not want to play in February or the heat of the summer. So the dead of cold, the worst part of winter, not Christmas. It's a lie. We're all celebrating the joyous time of snow, and Christmas has like 3 awful seasons to follow. And then you got the dead of summer, and no one wants to play in September and February. So all organizations tend to kind of gravitate around this April to August period, and I do not blame them. And it'd be really nice, of course, if the Masters Clash and CCL could coordinate that. And it looks like the CCL is simply just going to run longer. They're going from May 7th until August 7th for their top 4 double elimination bracket. So if Masters Clash is kind of sitting right in those core dates, and they wouldn't even be done in time. And too, like if Masters Clash is having its LAN final, a LAN final, that's a pretty cool promise, in July 9th. July 9th is the start of the playoff ladder, which is where a lot of these teams, because of the elimination style that Heroes Hearth goes with, that's when they take it seriously. And, I think the format's pretty solid, but it does mean that we start every CCL a little lackluster. There's not a lot on the line. Yeah, we might, we lose some, but there's always, if we become incredible by the end, there's always the loser bracket where it's just a placement for the end bracket, and we could always win it all from last place. So we'll practice later.
Gotcha. Well, we'll talk more as this develops. This is going to be more to this, I am sure. Well, Kyle, I can't believe I'm asking you this question, but you want to talk StarCraft for a minute?
Weird, right?
You want to get back to your roots?
Back to those Zergy roots.
They're covered in purple goo.
Yeah, so
Actually, that's a
StarCraft
lurker. Run for your life. Zerg roots are lurkers. Run.
StarCraft is getting a balance patch. And what's interesting is they're toting that it's put together by our very own SC2 community, quote unquote, there. Over the last couple of months, we've been working with various members of the community and tournament organizers to create a balance patch for the game. So we could just like just super negative. I don't know how to bounce the game. They have to ask. It's an interesting dynamic, and we can't immediately have that conversation to pick up this idea and put it in Heroes because this is a 1v1 game. There's going to be a lot saner processes when it comes to balance from the community when you're 1v1.
Yeah, and
races.
yeah, it's there's 3 races. Now, granted, a lot more units, but still, you can a wider group of players are going to have similar experiences with the units because they're spread out across only 3 races. Whereas with what is it? We're 90 heroes in Heroes of the Storm. With that many heroes, you and I don't play a lot of the same heroes, like ever. There's so few heroes that you and I share. So if we were to have a conversation, if I was going to talk to you about how Rex are fixed up, I don't think you'd have much to say on that.
It gets extremely anecdotal with so many moving pieces and so little control that one player has on the game.
Yeah. But I'm going to come back around to this because it's an entertaining conversation to have. So anyways, that being said, getting to this, it's interesting. Here's the Storm. It is built in the StarCraft 2 engine. It is built by the same people. We share a lot of the same team members, especially since it kind of all became classics, even though they sunset the classics name, even though the classics team still freaking exists. I don't get it. Anyway, it got a balanced patch, and they said it was put together by the StarCraft 2 community. And yeah, I saw some folks saying what you said too, which is like they don't know how to balance their own game. Probably not the same people making the same complaints, but like you can't have your cake and eat it too. You can't like yell about Blizzard, they don't listen to their players, and then also complain when they let the players decide what a balance patch is. And really, I don't think this is all that crazy from what we've heard from in the past. We know in the past across StarCraft 2's history that they would consult with top players with ideas for patches.
What's interesting, and we can say as a result of player influences, it seems like rushing is being decreased even further. And I'm not up on StarCraft to a full degree. I believe this has to do with Zerg Queens can no longer transfuse off creep. Basically, imagine if Zagara had a heal spell, but you could only use it on creep. This was a strategy to move your queens all the way to someone else's base in the early game. And already StarCraft has done a lot to sort of shore up their early game, make it get to the action faster. And these community people who are helping design the game now want to make the game even go longer. Which, of course, the longer the game goes, the more opportunities you have to come back, and the more chance like skill can be shown off rather than luck. And I understand why any pro would want that.
Yeah. And I've just been excited to see StarCraft personalities talking about this. Like I saw a tweet about StarCraft 2 from day 9. My God, it's been a while.
Yeah,
it's great.
Yeah.
It's great. I believe he is concerned about this becoming a 200 turtle fest. But still, this is interesting. And so while I think it would be difficult to apply this to Heroes of the Storm, can't help but wonder. Boy, it's a fun place to put my brain. Only problem is, Kyle, besides ushering in the greatest Arthas change in the history of the game, I don't think they would ask us our opinion.
Yeah. I do feel like we have, fingers on the pulse and all that sort of thing, but certainly don't come to us for single hero opinions because naturally I never ever want to lose with Diablo because it's just unfun.
Yeah.
Even though I've got a rocking build with it, youtube.com/heroeshearth. Check out the Bad Benny video I did. It's such an amazing build. I got to play it last night in a draft and it was great.
Yeah. Where was I going with that? Shoot. You lost my. Oh, I was going to say they've never come out and said that they kind of categorize changes as this is for pro and this is for the general player base. But yeah, I think maybe if they were to consult the community, maybe do that. Like maybe look at the heroes that you're targeting for things like CCL, for Masters, and talk to pros about that. But then look at bronze through diamond and quick match. Hell, even ARAM. Talk to some ARAM players. And so we can finally prove to you that Junkrat is terrible and a bad thing for this game and needs to be fixed. You should talk to a lot of people so we don't get really skewed vendetta-based suggestions like delete Junkrat.
I mean, even Google Sheets has the ability to move things into a graph, and you could definitely see some trends if you pulled people on balance and tried to put their feelings together on different aspects. This gets into a really, really broad philosophy that Blizzard has lost control of recently.
Where are you going with this?
And I'm talking like the past 3 years. Unbalance is fun. Like that's the joy of a game. It's a joyous thing to have Shadow Priests and Zerg and have these just like outrageous outliers and move those pieces around. And during our AZ Jackson interview, he said that he could go through the game and math the game into balance. It would just be, not in his words here, but it'd be hideous. It would be boring. It would be unfun. And it's fun to have Nova's snipe do more damage than her pinning shot. So that skill is rewarded on the harder to hit skill shot. But people who become absurdly good at aiming with Nova suddenly have this huge advantage. And that's kind of what you're talking about when you get into like asking the pros what they want versus, the bronzers. I wonder if that's an unsustainable philosophy though. And we're seeing with games like Final Fantasy, to bring up one, we're both currently playing, that we are seeing a lot more homogenization of damage numbers across abilities rather than the more Wild West style of balancing.
It's a little different, though, when you're talking about a game that is primarily PvE.
Right, and I'm also like reducing that conversation down to a massive level because I don't really understand it.
They also push it so far in a class like Blue Mage that you're not allowed to bring it to certain content.
Absolutely. And that's just a interesting idea, right? It's like, well, this is a fabulous hero. We refuse to balance Murky for ranked. You can play them in quick match anytime you want.
Right? Like, I don't think that's where this is going. I think asymmetrical design is important for any game like this. I mean, our springboard for this is StarCraft, which is inherently asymmetrical. You have 3 races. Now you can have mirror matches, and I kind of enjoy them. I've always enjoyed. I just sorry Protoss players. I've never really cared for your race of choice in StarCraft, but I've always enjoyed Terran v Terran, Zerg v Zerg, because TVT always seemed like a chess match, and Zerg ZVZ always felt like the most fast paced razor's edge line of games, just trying to break through defenses. But I digress. I don't know, man. I'm sure that could be accomplished, but like to what end, to what point? I think having it not be perfectly balanced is good, because if the closer we get to those sort of things, if we got to an actual perfect balance where every hero is just as good as the other in all scenarios, it just removes so much intrigue from the game. You won't have things like map picks, counter picks, all that kind of stuff. Like if we're talking true in a vacuum, perfectly balanced game.
I agree with you. And perhaps that's a very different topic. So to kind of work it back here, my curiosity is in this time of transition and movement for Blizzard as they try to reestablish themselves, find their footing. I feel like they've lost a lot of their Walt Disneys. They've lost a lot of their visionaries. A single person with a computer mind, the galaxy brain, we would call them in a draft environment, who you come to and say, is this good? And they say, yes, no, yes, no, yes, 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 no. And without that person at the helm of all these various games, can we have asymmetrical balance at this time? Does it simply take too much work for a team to coordinate by democracy asymmetric decisions that are unique and interesting? Or should we just let math and computers give it to an AI and let the AI decide what's fun for us for just a bit while we figure out our footing?
I don't know. I think recent patches have been hit and miss. Like, I think we've had patches that I like. We have patches that I haven't cared for. I really like the most recent one. What was it, before Christmas? I said I think it was one of my least favorite patches ever. So it's for me, it's all over the place, and I like the way they're going about it. Like, they're choosing their battles. They're looking at what's out there. And the last few patches, whether I liked them or didn't, I like that it was a nice spread. They were messing with things that were both trying to freshen things up for the players at home, for the average Joes like me, while also they're clearly watching CCL and they're making adjustments there as well. So I think it is good from a conversation perspective. It is helpful for us to talk as a community, to have these buckets of things like talking about asymmetrical balance versus like balance kind of a thing. We can talk about that as like genres of thinking, but it's not what I want. I want the team to go after what they want when they want, which is, I think, what they've more or less always done. We've seen trends as, as balance designers have changed out, but they've always kind of danced around competitive versus, the average player.
I agree. And to that note too, like, I don't expect a galaxy brain in that way to helm the ship forever. That's extremely stressful. Nor do I think Chris Metzen was in charge of balancing Burning Crusade.
I don't know. He probably would have used Arthas better than Shadowlands.
Well, do you want to? Should we have a big aside here? Do you want to have a conversation about Shadowlands?
We're about to get into Grubby asking to fix Warcraft 3. So yeah, Garrett would like to ask you to fix World of Warcraft because it sucks.
Yeah. Well, it's a very interesting. That's a very interesting conversation that I think sort of works into this, because what you've got, in my opinion, and a lot of this is John's opinion as well, John Jagger from the Core and previously Azeroth Roundtable.
Good man, that John.
Oh yeah. Introduced me to Final Fantasy 14. The first guy I run to.
Oh, so it's John's fault.
Slightly.
So our Final Fantasy 14 journey is a Russian stacking doll, and the biggest one is John, and I'm the smallest.
He is the one that told me to play it like Dragon Age 3 or Dragon Age when I wanted to play Dragon Age again, but I didn't want to play Dragon Age. Like, it was a perfect storm. Anyway, anytime there's WoW drama of any kind, like, I throw open that window in Slack and I'm like, John, did you say that? we immediately start talking. But one point I love that he made up is that Chris Metzen was a comic book writer. Like, he wrote for serialized little tiny books that made you want to buy the next one. And what happened over time is World of Warcraft wanted to tell these really, really big stories. They were watching Game of Thrones. They were watching Marvel movies, as we all were, maybe playing Final Fantasy. They want to tell really large stories, but the bandwidth you have in World of Warcraft is so small. The jailer said something like 490 words across the entire expansion. Someone counted them. 490 words, right? You're not going to be able to tell a sufficient story. There's all kinds of theories that Game of Thrones ending would have been satisfying if there were like 3 more seasons in there, just to like make things make sense before you got there.
I'm with you on Game of Thrones. I caution against counting words, because what's the right word count, Kyle? Are all characters that have word count that low objectively bad? But if you tip over 500, suddenly you're a quality character. No, that is the biggest load of BS. like I don't. How helpful is that?
It's an interesting note because there's a certain amount of investment in time. You have a 5-minute cinematic to wrap up the story. How long did we spend at the end of A Realm Reborn? It warned us. It literally had a pop-up that was like, you're about to spend an hour and a half watching cutscenes, so sit your butt down and get ready.
Okay, while I prefer that, I'm with you, and I think it is even A Realm Reborn, which is considered by many to be like the thing you gotta get through to get to the good stuff. Definitely leagues beyond the quality of the writing in Shadowlands, in my opinion. But It's also Final Fantasy, Kyle. The joke for that game is you're watching a movie more than you're playing a game. Like the whole
Metal
series.
Gears, what's all the Kojima games, like it's definitely of that note that this could be 2 hours of cutscenes, and the gameplay might happen at some
I
point.
fought a Moogle, and then I watched an hour-long film.
and that's what you're there to do, right? So, but back to my point there, like when people praise the Chris Metzen writing, I think it worked really well for the vessel of World of Warcraft.
I agree, and they've always been pretty low on their cinematics. Battle for Azeroth probably had the most, and people freaking hated that story.
There were so many little cinematics too.
Oh, there were. I personally, man, I just found Sourfang so boring.
But, and I can't take that opportunity to say like, and is that is that sort of being mindful of what vessel you have? How does that work back into balance? But let's just fart off for a little bit here and talk Shadowlands.
You and I've been wanting to have this conversation, and this is our show, so we're gonna have it. Literally, this is a podcast. Every podcast jokes about getting off topic, so here we are.
Man, I mean, really, what it comes down to is in this particular instance, they have pulled the "oh no, there's a bigger bad" too many times.
Again, yeah. I'm done with that, man. Like, have that be like your in between patch content, or have that be the pre-expansion event, like which they used to do. Like, Burning Crusade didn't perfectly dovetail into freaking Wrath of the Lich King. Killed Illidan, and that was the end of it. And then right before Wrath happened, you had the Scourge invasion event. Like, why feel like it? To me, the whole reason, and mild spoilers for the end of Shadowlands, if anyone cares. I'm throwing some shade today. Yeah. Is that like they took away like all of the coolness of Arthas by being like, oh, it was the jailer all along. He pulled the strings. And the jailer is also, he pales in comparison to the next threat. He was just trying to warn us about the next threat. And I'm just like, so you made my favorite villain less cool by making another big bad that was bigger and badder than him, but the jailer is not an interesting character. And then also he's just pales in comparison to whatever's next. Like it makes each expansion, to me, feel unimportant, because it's like when Apple constantly announces a new phone. It's like, well, the thing I currently have is a piece of shit. Thanks. Like, it's hard to feel satisfied with the here and now when you're constantly, everything is at the service of what's next.
There are so many bad movies that have amazing costume design, music, and all that sort of thing. And in that way, I do see the jailer from the outside. I'm like, he'd be a great hero. Like I'd stomp around with chains or whatever, go into my super suit, die, become a robot for some reason. Like, I would totally play this guy in Here's the Storm. He's got a cool voice. He says cool stuff. The end of eternity, and I said the title of the movie, movie kind of thing. Like,
cosmic horror of it all.
I'm into it. Like, thematically, like, I would play him in Here Is the Storm and I have a really good time with it.
Yeah, I really came around on his look. You could go listen to Instance or old Instance episodes or WoW Killer episodes and hear me talk about it. I was like, oh man, I just think the jailer looks lame. And then when I finally got in the game and saw the scale of him, I'm like, you know what? This totally works. He is imposing and creepy.
But the sad part for me is that I never cared more than when he became a robot and stopped talking. Like, I was like, now I have questions. You're talking about like unmaking reality, stopping the cycle of death. I do not know what those mean.
Yeah, why wasn't that front loaded? I mean, it's easy to armchair after the fact, of course, but like, right. what else is a podcast for, Kyle?
You haven't provided me with the lore to understand what your goals are. But when you became a robot, I went, oh, what's that? That's interesting. We answer these questions now. Tell me more. And now it's over, and we're going to close that.
There was still a mystery, right? We still don't know what he's worried about. Like, there's still that mystery. So if we knew his motivation, like, there's still, you still could have weaved in mystery and intrigue and had a setup for the next one. So I don't know.
And people have, kind of shown off the pulling the strings, the steps here as, Illidan was just trying to protect us from Sargeras. Sargeras was just trying to protect us from, was it Nazoth? Nazoth was just trying to protect us from the jailer, I guess. Like there's these sort of stages, but I do think that the Legion stage was very strong because I was mad impressed that Illidan even said and joined us, and then we went to Argus. Like that was a great step. And
Well,
regardless of what Sargeras did in his sword doing nothing, I was into it.
and I think that was the last time there was a really, really satisfying ending in Warcraft. Like, I've seen some people, I've seen some discourse around the community saying like, well, even in Legion, we didn't kill Sargeras, we locked him away, and like to me, it doesn't matter whether a character like dies or not. Like that felt like the closing of a book. Like, yeah, maybe he'll break back out and we'll have to deal with Sargeras later, but that really did feel like the end of a major arc, the end of an expansion. Like, because also Illidan's gone. Like, they're gone now. They can bring them back. I'm sure they will. Warcraft is Marvel and anime in that way. We talk about anime death, we talk about Marvel death. Like, none of it is permanent. But it felt final, and it wasn't like before. It wasn't like as Illidan is like going to punch Sargeras into the jail, he turns to us and goes, "Beware of Sylvanas." Like, there wasn't some tee up for BFA. It was just let's watch the end of this and have a conclusion.
I think that really, John also said that really kind of got me was he said, let players do a victory lap. I thought that, I just want to make sure that I'm sharing some of these thoughts are not my own, but I found them really profound. Like the idea that players deserve to say, we did it, we beat him, and not have him like last minute be like, oh, no takesies backsies, it wasn't my fault. Like my, basically playground rules us to take away portions of the victory that players should feel when defeating a big bad.
Yeah, I'm with you there, man. Like, listen, Empire Strikes Back is the best Star Wars movie, but you can't have the Empire Strikes Back ending every single time.
Right. You don't.
Sometimes you need to have the Ewok party. And I have yet to have one. I have had one twice already in Final Fantasy 14. I've yet to have one in World of Warcraft.
It's fascinating. It's crazy. There's a lot of blame being thrown around, not only just by the players who are all trying to dissect this and maybe even come to terms with it, but just kind of this idea we're being presented from the writing team, like, oh, now we're all shored up. We did it. We cleaned up. We cleaned up the loose ends. We did it. Like next expansion is the one where we really get to like lay to rest all the things that were left upon us. And yeah, the team has been through a lot. They were thrown the Sylvanas burning the tree grenade, and that's what they're called in like improv and writing. Like you throw a grenade and someone has to jump on it. Someone has to deal with this huge problem you presented in the lore, and they had to clean that up. And as a DM, as a dungeon master, sometimes it takes 2 years of working with a player to actually like work out the grenade they've been throwing you so they could create their character. I get it. But man, so much is riding on that next expansion again. And I feel so absurd even saying that aloud.
We've always had the joke with WoW where it's like it's an every other expansion rule. Every other expansion's really good. But Shadowlands kind of broke that because BFA had its issues, and Shadowlands, I can't believe I'm coming out of the Death expansion being like, I think I like BFA more. But here I am. Kyle, we're being raided by Bahamut, so
I'm good to see you all.
What's up, Bahamut? Thanks for the raid. Also, it's 69 people, so that's very nice.
So that was beautiful. Thank you for joining me in that, Garrett.
Thank you for letting me have that conversation. I've been wanting to talk to you about. I've been wanting to fart off with you, get off topic, talk about the end of Shadowlands, and had a chance. I am sure we'll never mention it again.
Never. The health. Yeah, like people might say in an MMO, the world is unhealthy. Like Blizzard's unhealthy, and like we should be in the Heroes of the Storm community cheering for WoW to succeed so we can all succeed and so we can get our plants watered around here. And to that note, they have announced their sort of roadmap for spring 2022 and what their plans for that World of Warcraft stuff.
It's not just World of Warcraft either. Hearthstone's in here for some reason. We talked about this on the Angry Chicken, that it's weird. It just sounds strange. Because they're just like, the Warcraft roadmap, save the date. First of all, save the date sounds like a wedding. Secondly, Hearthstone's its own thing. It's not Warcraft. It's
We
technically
will not be
Warcraft.
associated with World of Warcraft, please. We do not.
No, it just seems weird. Like, I'm of one mind where I'm like, Hearthstone feels like it doesn't need to be tied in. And on the other side, I'm hearing Heroes of the Storm like, can we be Warcraft? Can HOTS be Warcraft? Can we get on this roadmap? So it just seems strange. Like, we made this joke. We made this joke when the Microsoft acquisition news broke because they put up that image and everyone was memeing that, first of all, Heroes of the Storm isn't even on here at all. But neither was Hearthstone. There was just the World of Warcraft was listed on that image. And everyone's like, well, Hearthstone's Warcraft. It's like, that's the World of Warcraft logo. That is a specific game. And they're not talking about an IP there. So that seemed odd. And now here is like internal Blizzard promotion that's like tying Hearthstone in with Warcraft. So, and I think, HOTS players aren't the only ones that are feeling left out. Warcraft 3 players are, I think, have been feeling left out ever since Reforged launched. But this is you dropped this in the show this week. Is that Grubby, got on the horn and was like, "Hey, that's nice that you're announcing a Warcraft mobile game. Can you maybe fix Warcraft 3 first?" I'm paraphrasing here. Grubby was a lot more amenable.
It's worth reading. This was a response to Mike Ybarra, just kind of casually announcing, congratulating teams and whatnot, and saying he's excited for the upcoming events and releases. Grubby says, "Hey, Mike, I'm excited for a new Warcraft game on mobile. However, I feel like you owe us an explanation for how Reforged was sent into the world. I helped you co-announce it at BlizzCon. Isn't repairing its reputation worth it? Maybe remake it again, just with improved graphics. Thank you." That's some heavy stuff. Like, I really like what Grubby had to say here, and that basically he felt, to put words in his mouth, a bit tricked. When you're asked to come on stage and help you showcase a product, and with that attention and access, you spoke well of it and convinced fans to purchase.
The demo at that BlizzCon was good, but it was also false advertising, as we came to find out. Yeah. They didn't even put the cinematic that was finished, playable on the floor in the damn game. So, yeah, I feel that. I mean, that was the BlizzCon with Diablo Immortal, so that was a rough BlizzCon kind of all around. But I came out of that one saying, dude, the coolest thing here is that Warcraft 3 Reforged. It looks great. It plays great. And it was a big surprise. I thought they should have ended the opening ceremony with it, not Diablo Immortal. I still stand by. I think the biggest issue with Immortal is not that they're making a mobile Diablo game. I think it's that they saved it as like their big closer in the opening ceremony for BlizzCon that year. But BlizzCon attendees, they're your diehards. They're your PC players. Like, I'm not saying that PC is inherently better than mobile, but like, know your audience is what I'm saying. So yeah, it's interesting. Not used to getting like these announcement roadmaps, which like maybe this is going to be a new thing. Maybe this is, with no BlizzCon on the horizon, we can expect more of these. And maybe that's
these are all reveals.
Maybe that's what's going on. I'm literally having this thought right now. Right now, Kyle. Tell me if I'm crazy. You just had stages where things were shared, and so maybe it makes more sense that things like Hearthstone are being wrapped up in with the Warcraft announcement. Because if you're going to go see a Warcraft panel, maybe the Hearthstone panel's next at BlizzCon. When you think about like the way the stages were divvied up.
So that's why we're wait, what?
I'm just thinking like, what? It just seems weird. Like, if you're a Hearthstone fan, when shit's coming out because the same shit comes out at the same time every year. Why wrap it up into Warcraft like this? Except like I'm thinking about the lack of BlizzCon, and it's like maybe we're gonna get more announcement roadmaps like this. And also, if you think about it through the lens of BlizzCon, we never really wondered why a Hearthstone panel followed a Warcraft panel on the same stage.
I mean, this kind of strikes me. Now we're getting to like writing a resume, and I facilitated and coordinated nutritional value for preschoolers. I made my son lunch every day. Like, yeah, I feel like they're taking advantage of Hearthstone's regularity to make their roadmap look better, and I don't think there's anything more to that. They have a product that is extremely regular, and they have now attached only announcements to it. Like the start of the Arena World Championships begin, a expansion reveal, a mobile game reveal. These are not, we are adding anything. These are vessels of teams that are currently functional. World of Warcraft, the esports side of things, Hearthstone, and reveals. Marketing team. The marketing team is still on schedule. These are not, we plan to update the player experience. New models coming for allied races, that sort of thing. Like those are the teams that have not been able to hit dates. So
We
this roadmap is nothing special to me.
they're trying. If they wanted to shut me up, they would just start selling an Arthas body pillow. But Grimly,
They don't know their audience. That's right there. That's your problem.
Grimly in the chat room says, "Yeah, Hearthstone and WoW share the stage while Hots is locked in the basement." I went to that BlizzCon. The demo line to play Deathwing and Heroes of the Storm was longer than I ever saw the Hearthstone line at BlizzCon, and you had to go way out of your way to get to it. Just saying.
It's a good. Here's the Storm at BlizzCon was always an arcade. Like that line was packed with people who had never played before, and they just wanted a fart off good time. Like it was skee ball at Chuck E. Cheese. Like you're not lining up next to pros. Everyone's just having a decent go of it.
There are pro skee ball players, Kyle. Just so you know.
I'm sure. I don't think they're at my Chuck E. Cheese.
I love skee ball, man. I love skee ball so much. I'm terrible at it, but I love it. What I was going to say there was, if you remember, I came back and you were like, yo, because you couldn't make it that year. How was Deathwing? And I'm like, I don't know. The line was too long. I didn't get to play him.
Yeah.
It was, I think back on that a lot, and it's like, it's like that last year, 2019, like, yeah, I was in the basement. The basement was cool, though. That was the Blizzard Arcade. They literally called that area the Blizzard Arcade, and it was just a lot of demo stations. And I think they moved the Diablo-themed bar down there, and they put up a bunch of big screens so you could, like, get a beer and watch the esports down there. And it was packed. People went so out of their way for Heroes of the Storm. So it's like, it's easy to joke and be like, yeah, how's this in the basement? But listen, most of my favorite concerts were in tiny venues.
Well, while we're here, what's the mobile release? What do you?
I have no idea, dude. I really don't know.
I don't think Blizzard's at a point where they are going to be unsafe. I don't think they're pushing any boundaries. I'm expecting a match 3 kind of thing, maybe
Match
a Kingdoms
3.
Clash.
Clash style game I could see. I know a lot. In its heyday, I knew a lot of my buddies at Blizzard played. It's still around, still doing well, but like, boy, it'd be late to do something like that.
Like just angry orc face on this. It looks like all the others because they all look like that.
The things that are clearly aping World of Warcraft. Yeah, except
so
it's official.
They're gonna make their own now. Or there's been rumors for ages that there's gonna be a World of Warcraft Pokemon Go thing.
I'd be into that. I would, dude. If I could go capture Murlocs, Katie and I would be out at the park tomorrow.
I do not care.
I know you don't. I know you don't. We were so into Pokemon Go for like 2.5 years, like hardcore. We spent 2 of our Key West vacations playing Pokemon Go around Key West. We had so much fun. Did you buy
eggs? Were you into like the
a little bit? We didn't go nuts. We did it a few times. But yeah, we played it a lot for those first 2 years. So I would get into that. That would be probably the only thing I would actually play.
What would you do? And I'll ask this in Twitch chat as well. Like, what would you do if it's a World of Warcraft? They say Warcraft here, so not necessarily World of Warcraft, but Hearthstone's labeled Hearthstone, not Hearthstone Heroes of Warcraft, right?
World of Warcraft, and then just Warcraft. Maybe it's a stealth HOTS tie-in, Kyle.
Well, that's what I'm about to ask. What would you do if they fire up the mobile game and it's Here's the Storm models marching down the lane at each other?
I'd be stoked. Whatever it is, that'd make me a lot more excited. The art in HOTS, I still think, holds up really well. Would you be mad? You got this face like you'd be mad.
I would be jealous. I'd be a little perturbed. Yes, it's like those are our models. What are you doing? Those are our assets. How could you? It's like, what if the Dragon Knight pops out on Grandma's phone? He's playing there in the playing there in the living room, and you're over at your grandma's house. You hear, "No, I am not finished." What?
I wish they would say that instead of
I know.
avenge my husband.
What if though they did? You
What?
and Here's the Storm have to keep listening to Dead Husband, but now mobile game gets the Good Dragon Night lines.
Oh, that's an extremely deep cut that you are making just to piss me off. You are sitting over there right now, Kyle, trying to put together, like you're working in a secret government lab, the most awful thing you could do to make me angry.
Now, and they're like doing the back and forth. And then why should people invest in the game? Well, we had this really great Arthas model in Heroes of the Storm, but it needed some upgrades. So we took it and improved upon it. Zoo, spinning model, zoo, 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 wah, and explodes. And
by the way, when he fires off Death Coil while running away, he doesn't stop dead in his tracks.
He doesn't stop moving.
Okay, yeah. Then I would just be like, that's it. We're done. I quit. No, I don't know. I think it's going to be, I do think it's going to be chasing some sort of mobile trend. It's going to be like something else that's out there. Hearthstone Mercenaries was so close to Raid Shadow Legends. Like it was a really, really close comparison between the two with a little bit of Pokemon sprinkled on top. So that's kind of where my head's at. And like, none of this is the product of like new leader. We don't even have new leadership yet. Like the Microsoft takeover isn't over yet. Even when it is next year, it's going to be years before we see like a product that was birthed and taken to completion completely under the post Microsoft merger. So I don't know. Also, I don't think I'm the target audience. I'm not a big mobile gamer. I don't really like playing on my phone, even Hearthstone, which I think is great on the phone. I just would rather play at a computer. So I don't know. Blizzard's, to say it's in a strange place is putting it extremely mildly. But without thinking about the Activision and lawsuit side of things, just thinking about the products that they're shipping and their issue of hype and image right now, I don't think there's really anything they could do on mobile that's going to really move the needle in a positive direction right now, because it's not their bread and butter. It's not the kind of thing that gets the people that are the most vocal about Blizzard games, cheering. And I'm not saying that's good or bad. Like, I think it's a smart business move. They should make mobile games. And even if it is just aping off an existing mobile genre that was probably making questionably legal art that looks a lot like Warcraft art to sell their shit in the first place, go for it. Blizzard should have their own official versions of these games. I'm all for it. I just personally probably won't play it.
Well, and that's what we see with EverQuest to World of Warcraft. That was the primary complaint back in the day from EverQuest players, is that it simplified and reduced WoW down to something anybody could play. A child could be good at World of Warcraft. What a horrible thing that was at the time.
No, accessibility and intuitively designed systems. How horrible.
Right. So if it is, an online system that already exists, like those Clash of Clans or whatever, but it's accessible. I do think my final question would be, is Hearthstone bloated, perhaps? And the reason why they included it here, bloated being my opinion. When I enter, I'm very confused and overwhelmed, and the buttons I don't know where anything is. Do you think that they included Hearthstone on this list to then turn around and say Warcraft mobile game is a Hearthstone game? Like we've taken Raid Shadow Legends and made it its own product now.
Oh, you mean breaking out Mercenaries?
Yeah.
I mean, as a Hearthstone fan, I think that'd be smart. I think it's really hard. I just talked about this on TAC this week, that I think anything that isn't regular Hearthstone is a hard elevator pitch, because you're like, hey, you want to play Blizzard's Auto Battler? Install Hearthstone. And everyone's going to go, what, the card game? No. Well, within it is its own Auto Battler. And they're like, hey, you like Raid Shadow Legends? Well, you should play Blizzard's gacha game. They'd be like, wait, just go install Hearthstone. And they'd be like, what, the card game? Like, no. So you see, you go into Hearthstone, then you click on the button that says Mercenaries, and you go in there, and it's a completely different game that plays like Raid Shadow Legends. That's too much to say. And to Hearthstone's credit, it has really good brand recognition. A lot of people already have a pre-baked in understanding of what they think Hearthstone is, and it's a card game. So I think that'd be smart. Again, though, I don't think he'd be this cagey about it. I don't think he'd have a question mark and be like, "It's a big reveal. We're revealing that we're taking a game that already exists and making its own standalone game." I think that's really unlikely.
That's fair. They want this to have a unique logo that we will all recognize and will be up on a flag someday.
This is gonna be a new Warcraft mobile title that has nothing to do with Hearthstone, is my guess. That's my guess. But in terms of what kind of game, I don't know. I think something in the Clash space is likely. So I could see you applying Warcraft to that very easily. If it's a Pokemon Go game, I'm excited. Let's talk about it when it happens.
If you want to talk about something else that literally just happened, like an hour before we recorded, Overwatch 2 announced that they're doing an alpha in April, which is going to be for Blizzard employees and the upcoming players for the Overwatch 2 esport. And they announced with procession, with joy, again, opinion, but that they're decoupling Overwatch 2 from its PvE mode to get Overwatch 2 in your hands faster.
I think that's a smart move.
Probably a smart move.
Yeah, a smart move. Have they said if it's going to cost money for this decoupled, unfinished product?
They have not. The video they put out was about 4 minutes long, from the game's current producer director, I believe. Let me double check who that is now.
Blizzard leadership is like Defense of the Dark Arts at this point. I have no idea who it is anymore because no one sticks around.
Game director Aaron Keller got on for a 4-minute, 12-second video where they said that we are fully aware that our communication has been bad and we will improve it. That your Overwatch game has not lived up to the expectation we set with updates. You haven't had an update since we announced Overwatch 2. And we are decoupling the PvP so we can get it to you soon, because you are going to love our biggest Overwatch update so far. Interesting word usage, right? Like the biggest Overwatch update so far, suggesting that you maybe don't have to pay for it? Or is it just an update? Is it an expansion update? I'm not really sure.
Update, yeah, I really don't know. It's not enough info, I think, for me to really have a take. I've been skeptical since the get-go. I've always kind of looked at Overwatch 2 as to me a cash grab. I'm like, this could have been an update to existing Overwatch. And it's just one more thing that's kind of like this, coupled with like how bad Warcraft 3 Reforged ended up being and how it also bricked original Warcraft 3 in terms of being an online competitive game. It's really hurting the long positive history of Blizzard continually supporting their products forever. That reputation is just degrading before my very eyes.
That's scary. That's where things get a little spooky.
Yeah, I mean, what's the joke I make on every other podcast when people are like, "Oh, you still do a Heroes of the Storm show?" I'm like, "Yeah, it gets more updates than Overwatch."
That's true.
And people think of that. People think of Tracer like the freaking Coca-Cola logo. Tracer is the Mickey Mouse of Blizzard now.
WoW Classic was toying around with the idea of putting out unique WoW Classic content, and then Diablo 2 Resurrected also was playing around during their press releases with the idea that they would release custom, unique, non-canon or extended canon missions and stuff.
Yeah, I personally would be interested in all of that, but I'm not a purist, and I don't feel strongly enough. Like, I don't think that's like something I would say, no, they should do that and not keep it pure. Cause like, I get it. If you are a purist, I think that's a fair stance. Like a big reason there even is a market for classic is because that stuff wasn't preserved, and there is value in preserving those old game worlds.
I think there's a very strong argument to make too, that we wanted to go back to those old game worlds because of bloated systems or things that exist on top of the current game that we do not like, but we feel like we can't have a change of. So let's go back. Let's go back in time.
Yeah. I don't know. I really fell off Overwatch hard. I don't see myself coming back. I would be super stoked if they did another crossover event with HOTS, though, because that Overwatch crossover event was freaking fire.
You talking about the original Genji one?
Yeah, man.
Yeah.
I was playing the shit out of both, and so were all my friends. We were just going in and out of both. I was having so many game nights with everybody. It was such a fun social moment in gaming. It's probably the most I was playing with friends on my Battle.net's like friends list outside of like back when I used to hardcore raid. Like we were really hitting it hard, just playing the crap out of both Overwatch and Heroes.
Very interesting. I'm rooting for them. I'm rooting for all these new teams. I want their products to succeed. So Here's the Storm can also succeed, and we can all succeed together.
Yeah. Well, what we haven't gotten into either is just like they've said as much that like a lot of people are leaving the studio, like they're down on talent, and this is industry wide as well. It's very much a time to go get hired because there's so many incentives and everyone's looking for talent. So this is kind of a first for Blizzard. They're not top dog anymore. I got startled for a moment. It's just raining, Kyle. I do indeed live in Florida. Anyways, you want to take some emails?
Let's do that.
Darkness stopped calling.
Darkness just texted me.
It's not the moment, it's a hero brawler!
You can send your emails to itncast@gmail.com. If you're supporting us on Patreon, write us in the Discord or just send us a message on Patreon, which we've got a couple of those. That doesn't happen a lot. People don't utilize the Patreon inbox all that much, but it's there and you can use it. And Mudge did that, wrote in this week and said, I feel as though the tank role is a very hard target to hit when creating new heroes. Their kits have to be just right to avoid them becoming solo laners or bruisers, but there are only so many combinations of CC and mobility, and perhaps we have created every quote-unquote tank kit there is to be found. Since you and Kyle have been playing so much Final Fantasy, is there a tank kit that you could see translating the Heroes of the Storm that wouldn't step on any existing tank's shoes? And thanks for trooping on and creating Heroes podcasts. I'm often too busy to play, and you guys are giving me my fix right now.
Awesome.
I have only played Dark Knight as far as a tank is concerned in Final Fantasy. And
I think
I like it a lot because it feels very artsy.
yeah, it is kind of a Death Knight equivalent in that way, you know, a bit more spiny, which is weird to say about comparing a Blizzard product that something else has more spikes associated with it.
If you replace ice shards with black and red spikes, you've got a Dark Knight instead of a Death Knight.
It's interesting whenever people talk about tank design, one of the first things they say, oh, what about a range tank? What would that be like? And we did get May. And I think May doesn't satisfy, and I don't mean this in a negative way at all, that range tank feel that people were hoping for, which is so weird. Because it's just that her auto attack is ranged. Otherwise, she's just as ranged as Johanna and just as ranged as... Oh, actually, is Johanna really the only one poking at range right now? Blaze? He's labeled as a tank, technically.
Blaze? Yeah, Blaze is a bruiser.
You got Muradin. He fires his storm bolt at range.
He also fires himself at range.
Yeah, so I guess what we're saying is we want a ranged auto attack that feels impactful in some way. Or perhaps there's just not enough whiz-biz.
Core Esports makes a good point. Garash's Q has the same range as anything else. You're not wrong.
Yeah? So, well, you know, what exactly are we asking for there? I bring that up because you mentioned Final Fantasy and the Gunbreaker being a gun-toting tank over there. Again, when you make things mad, oftentimes they're melee, so they get in melee, and now you're a melee tank, so the range didn't actually
and the gun is also a sword. It is worth mentioning.
The gun is also a sword.
My gun is a sword. Your argument is invalid.
That is true. But I do feel like that's one of the, you know, primary fantasies that hasn't been achieved yet. And
one might call it the Final Fantasy.
One could. In Dragon Age, there was a, you know, it's old BioWare now. Oh, ancient BioWare of 2009. There was a mage specialization you could get where you could become a tank and like equipped a shield and a sword despite being a mage class. and become a kind of sword and board wizard.
Oh, I made that mistake in Guild Wars.
Yeah, it doesn't work out well, does it?
Yeah, I did a what was it? Elementalist? Was that the mage in original
so.
Guild Wars? I did Elementalist Warrior, which was, I believe, the worst combo in the game. But Warrior Elementalist was one of the better ones. But I wanted to look like a cool wizard that tanked, and I was an idiot. It was literally my first MMO. I didn't want to look like the doofy warrior. I wanted to look like the cool Elementalist, and I made a horrible mistake.
See, I played a Mesmer Necromancer and then immediately flip-flopped it because, being a Mesmer was doofy and being a Necromancer was cool.
Necromancers are extremely cool.
Yes. Yes, they are. So, I would say that's where my brain goes immediately, is what can we do to capture the range tank feel, and what is that?
The longer we've gone, the less and less I even understand what we want. Because if the tank is the front line, you're only ranged until mofos walk up on you. Like, what's the goal? Are you a kite tank, and then your entire team has to draft poke? Because what would that even work? Because if you're a ranged tank and you draft a Kerrigan, that Kerrigan's gonna have double-digit deaths. Same goes for Alarak. Same goes for insert melee hero that isn't a tank and has a shit health pool here.
I feel like I'm kind of describing as Arthas with a gun.
Would still be better than Arthas at the end of Shadowlands.
So what you do is you look at your team and you say, oh my goodness, I have 4 backline and they have dive. How am I going to help out my team here? We don't need dive. We don't really need mobility. I just need to sit on top of them and keep them safe. And oftentimes, that's what like a Q build Arthas is used for. You have this little bit of poke, this little bit of like cleanup, self-sustain, but otherwise you're sitting on your Tyrande, Hanzo, Li Ming, and just trying to catch whatever comes their way. You don't need to suddenly move from point A back to your team. You don't need to be a defensive playing Diablo. You don't need to be a defensive playing ETC. You just need to sit on your team and keep them safe. And that'd work really well in a hammer situation as well. So then you get into the thing of like, well, May has a kind of bummer auto attack, but you sort of make up for it with all these sort of talents. And then like you have regeneration and all sorts of cool things when you slow things. So you kind of invest in the auto attack there. But I think a tank with an auto attack at range and spells at range that supplies pressure, and we ditch mobility like Arthas. That's to me what a range tank is, and I still want to explore that idea.
So is it just a tank that's like more dangerous to run away from? Because it could continue to poke and hit you? Is it just like low damage cleanup?
Kind of like a hammer, honestly.
Well, that wouldn't be low damage. That would be quite effective damage.
Right. But this idea that you would create a zone that keeps your players safe, but you are not going to be advancing that zone quickly. You're a setup tank.
You are describing Arthas.
Yeah, basically Arthas with pressure.
But if you can't advance the zone, which Arthas can't really, you don't have pressure.
That's what I'm saying. Arthas with a gun, right? Like the fact that you have to get up on Arthas for him to damage you in so many cases might be the core problem there. If he had an auto attack that was Death Coil, then at least there's a dismounting zone. Maybe that's honestly one of the issues, is just that there's not enough denial of advancement. The person you're guarding.
Could really lower the cooldown on Death Coil, lower the damage, and lower the mana cost. But that'd be interesting.
Yeah, just be shotgunning that out. Particularly if you added a nice little sword swing to it. That'd be kind of cool. It's like you're shooting it off the tip.
Yeah. What's the current cooldown on it? Just trying to think. Because I don't think it needs to be
12 seconds is my guess.
I don't think it needs to be a freaking machine gun by any means. Death Coil. 9 seconds.
Okay.
Yeah, what if it was 6? What if it was 5? And did, let's have that damage. Currently starts at 164 and scales at 4%. You'd also have to deal with the heal as well. Stampa just wants Arthas with a gun now in chat, and I don't blame Stampa. You Kyle, it's Gunbreaker Arthas. When?
Yep. There we go.
Do it, you cowards.
Question answered.
Who from Blizzard though? Who from the Blizzard like pantheon would be, and not the Warcraft pantheon? What from all Blizzard IPs would be a range tank? What character already fits what you're describing?
Does Overwatch do bruisers? What are their classifications of classes?
Dude,
I know
I would have had to have played Overwatch in the last 2 years to be any help with this.
Right. Is Zarya a tank over there? She's a specialisty, but if they support, she's a support over here.
Yeah.
And does her job well.
Or Risa says living time. Yeah, that was after my time with Overwatch. But it'd be interesting.
So I'm just looking for equivalents there because, of course, you got guns, and also May, at least release May, was a force with that ice gun as to getting snipe kills and stuff like that because headshots and all that sort of business.
You could do a prop paladin that does consecration, and then give them like judgment to poke.
Have we not utilized any Diablo classes yet in terms of, I guess, Diablo Paladin with the auras and such? But that's not really ranged again. So it is as for like existing characters, it's a tough one. It's a tough one to answer.
Yeah. Plus, if we got another paladin, I want damage because we have Uther healing, Johanna of tanking. I need a Ret Pally.
I mean, bring on robot hole himself. Bring in the jailer. Make him the range tank.
Oh, there you go.
Like I said, he's cool. He looks great. He's cool. He's a cool guy. I don't care if he didn't have a shirt on or whatever people wanted to complain about. I'm fine with big buff elf man. Like it never bothered me much.
I liked him more when I saw him in game and saw the scale. At first, I thought he was a person-sized person. And I was like, he just kind of looks like a dude. And then he's, the size of a 4-story building. You're like, holy shit. But yeah, it's an interesting thought there, Mudge. I don't have many lines to draw to Final Fantasy, but Kyle, I think you're getting on. I think you're right on the money. Like someone with area denial like Arthas, but more ranged capability for dismounting and just general poke.
Mr. Nipples? Why do people always talk about the jailer's nipples? Can you help me with that?
Because they're always out.
But that's what we'd all look like shirtless, and he looks way better than most of us shirtless.
He just kind of has a general hobo quality to him to me. He's got like the tattered clothes. Like
he was in jail.
There's something about Illidan where you look at him and he looks powerful and sexy. Shirtless, and there's something about the jailer that just looks like he's gonna ask you for $1.
Listen, I mean, it's great that people hated him, and then people now hate him. Like it went full circle. Like the hate was justified. But when he originally came out, I thought he was kind of neat, and then he got in like his suit of armor there.
That's fair. Listen, that you are fair assessment. Fair assessment. People from the get go, I was like, I don't know about this guy.
And then there was that thing about the feet in Overwatch, the floaty guy that got. People are particular. People get very particular about characters.
Yeah. Listen, I didn't just want Arthas again, but after all this, I would have taken Arthas again.
What about Arthas with the shirt off?
Arthas with the shirt off. I mean, you got to take the helm off too, though. You're going to go shirtless. You need to let those locks flow.
That he needs the... Wait.
Romance
he put on
novel cover Arthas. That's a skin I would buy.
But he put on the helmet and became the Lich King then. And the suit. Well, hang on though. It didn't Ice Crown the icicle have more armor in it than just the hat? There was like knee pads and stuff.
Oh, you're talking about all the way back in Warcraft 3? Yeah.
So he could just be in a helmet and it would work out. Just fuzz out like The Sims. Just fuzzed out Arthur's skin. Just a helmet
Just
on.
nude.
Nothing else.
just. Oh my God. Oh, that'd be great. That would be freaking great. I want the skin back that was literally Arthas as is, just no helm. I missed that skin.
Yeah, they took that away, right?
Yes.
Because it was under quality or something like that.
I don't care. It was my go-to favorite Arthas skin.
Yeah, it was solid.
Yeah. I miss it very, very much. Anyways. Stephen Bennett also sent a message in on Patreon, said, "Hey guys, what if they reduce quick match unranked ranked death times to the same as ARAM? They do this, they claim they claim this is a hero brawler after all. I think it has a lot of shock factor to it, but I think it would really be a fun upgrade and just generally think it would be cool."
So I like that. You are a hero brawler after all. Like, come on, do it.
You do have brawling on your Heroes Brawl tour, right?
Right. So why not let us brawl?
Don't believe they still call it a hero brawler, by the way. I guess they don't call it much of anything anymore because there's zero marketing for this game.
Yeah, I believe Deathwing's still flying on the game website, but he was also the new epic heroes and relentless action on a diverse battleground. That seems to be their defying MOBA expectations. Okay, there you go. So we are currently defying MOBA expectations. Yeah.
Yep. I would take this as an event. I don't think I'd want to live with it. I would vacation to short resurrection quick match, but I don't want to move there.
Yeah, I mean, you got globals on. There's certain aspects of it that wouldn't be a big deal. I think if you reduce channel times on like Cursed Hollow, it could be doable.
Any channel, and there's a lot of channels. Channel time on Cursed Hollow, Towers of Doom, Garden of Terror, Capturing the Dragon Knight. Any of those would be a concern.
Yeah. Because globals wouldn't matter because those are on their own separate cooldowns. And as you get longer death cooldowns, Brightwing's going to be able to teleport when she gets up anyway. Dahaka's going to dig in anyway. So it's not an issue to res Dahaka sooner when he can't even dig in that sense. It's not overpowered to have globals with reduced cooldowns, is my point.
Yep. No, that's a good point. I wouldn't be against this as an event. But I don't think I would like this as a permanent thing. Because I really enjoy quick match these days. It's a nice place to go and be like, I want to play heroes. I want to have a proper heroes experience, but I want to play the hero I want to play. I don't want to have an extra layer of like special rules on top of that, if that makes sense. And I think last week I talked about my aversion to just brawl modes in general. Back when Heroes of the Storm had one. Hearthstone still has one, even though they really don't get anything new for the most part. I've never been a big fan of like wacky match. Like I came to the game in the first place for the thing that it does, and I'd like to play the game for those reasons. So that's kind of where I personally stand on this kind of stuff. But if this was like, hey, it's a 2-month like Christmas event or something, sure, why not? Sounds like fun.
I'm ultimately with you. I'm ultimately with you. I think it might be a personality trait. I could, wax about something along the lines of, well, there's so many games to play, and Heroes is older, and when I show up to play Heroes, I want it to be the way I remember it. Like, that's not the case. If you come in and balance my game, I've got the same play set. I've just got new toys to put in it, and that doesn't bother me. But if my He-Man Castle Grayskull is broken or fundamentally laid out different, I'm going to be kind of upset. But you get me a Beastman for the day, like, hey, sweet, I'll play Beastman for a bit. You get me, the one that sounds like he's underwater. Voice acting back in the day, it was motivational. That was a job anybody could do.
That's how I felt about Skeletor.
Yeah.
Beastman. Anyways. Well, thanks for your emails, your patron DMs, your Discord messages, everybody. Keep them coming, itncast@gmail.com, or write us on Patreon or Discord. that's going to wrap it up for this week's episode. We want to speaking of our patrons, want to thank you one more time for the support. If you like our show, you want to support Kyle and myself directly, that's the best way to do so. Patreon.com/ITN. Any level you want. We have some that we suggest, but you can also make your own level. You can enter whatever amount works for you. And huge thanks to our producers, Sean B., Mike R., and Justin St. Pierre. If you want to become a producer, really help us out and get thanked every episode. Patreon.com/ITN. You can catch us live Thursdays at 3 p.m. Eastern right here on twitch.tv/AMoveTV. And the show's on Twitter at ITNcast. Other than that, around the table, Kyle, where can folks find you and me sometimes?
Well, that would be over at youtube.com/AMoveTV. You may have heard about all this Final Fantasy biz. That's where we do our Grinding Gear show about Final Fantasy and our live streams there of the gameplay as well. And we're going to be doing a raid next week. It's going to be real exciting, so be sure to check that out.
Yeah, we just posted our End of Heaven's Ward 3.0 video. I'll drop a link in chat since you're all here. So it's our first both of our first playthroughs. We've never done this before. So we're experiencing it in real time and chronicling the journey along the way. And I'm so stoked. This video is trending quite well, Kyle. Have you looked at the views lately?
Oh, we're quite proud. We are a young YouTube channel, and we are playing the game, learning a lot about the YouTube as humble podcasters entering that sphere. And it's a lot of work. I've never wished for more hours in the day. It's intense.
Yeah, man, you've been busting your ass, and I'm super stoked with how your video editing has grown. But yeah, go check that out. That's really what I want to promote as well. YouTube.com/AMoveTV. Go subscribe. Go watch our Final Fantasy 14 coverage. The latest one. If you liked our conversation about the end of Shadowlands, you'll probably like our most recent YouTube video. Go check it out. Other than that, just follow me on Twitter at GarrettArt. That's going to do it for this episode. Thanks so much for hanging out, everybody. We'll see you next Thursday for the next episode of Into the Nexus. But until then, good luck and have fun.
Take care.